Mayoral Memo with Mathew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Minutes away from 8 o'clock, you're listening to 2BS 95.1 FM. Liam O'Connell filling in for Peggy this morning. He'll be back on Wednesday this week. And it's a very good morning to the Mayor of Dubbo, Mathew Dickerson. How are you doing?
Good morning, Liam. Some big shoes to fill there with Pecky away.
Absolutely. I'm feeling a tiny bit nervous there now. It's been going, fingers crossed, touching all the wood. Going all right so far. But look, a fair bit to talk about this week. Some significant money being thrown at a few renewable energy projects in your part of the world.
Well, the great part is that it's money being thrown in the other direction. Some people question whether a renewable energy project or a number of them is any good for a particular region, and they don't like maybe the look of the wind turbines on the hill, or they don't like the look of solar panels. And they're really always questioning, what does it do for the local community? Well, one of the big things out of renewable energy projects is that some of them will have what's called a community benefit fund. So you'll get some money coming back in. And so two examples this week. One, we actually gave away some money as part of one of those renewable energy projects. We've got one called the Badengra Wind Farm in our area. So this week we handed out $61,000 of money to 10 different community groups. And they do a whole range of different things with this money. They might be replacing the fridge and the canteen. They might be doing up the fascia on the building. And all the community groups around can actually put an application in each year. It's up to now, that particular project is up to $85,000 each year that they give away to various community groups in there. So that's one big advantage of having some renewable energy projects in your area. One of the things that's strange though, Liam, and I've never been able to work this out and no one's been able to give me a good answer, is that when you've got a wind farm, you have to have an agreement with your local council to put some money back into the community. You can argue about how much it is, but it has to be an amount. If it's a solar farm or a battery, there's no obligation on the proponent to actually have an agreement with the local council to put money back in the community. Sometimes you can negotiate something to get some money back in the community, but it's not compulsory. I don't understand the difference why, but we go into bat for all of them. So that's one good project. The other one that's coming up, Liam, is one out at Spices Creek. Now, the one at Badengra is 33 wind turbines. The one out at Spices Creek is about 3 times that size. So we're negotiating a new framework with them at the moment. This one hasn't actually started yet. It hasn't been given approval. But we've put a new framework through where we're working with Warrumbungle Shire Council, Mid-Western Regional Council and obviously Dubbo Regional Council to have this standard figure of 1.5%, where we'd like to see the total capital cost of the project, whatever that is. So let's say it's a $2 billion project, then 1.5% of that we want to see come back into the community over a 30-year time frame. Now, if we're successful with that one, and we're going well with negotiations so far, that would be $30 million, or basically $1 million a year, that would come back into the community from that particular renewable energy project. So it starts to talk about some serious money coming back in if we are successful with some of these negotiations.
Just heading back on that renewable energy front for a moment, I understand you've also been meeting with mayors from our own area as well to talk about the future, I suppose, competition for some of these projects.
Well, one of the things that was interesting is we had a meeting during the week over in Dunedoo, and that was from the New South Wales farmers. They asked us to come along. So we had the Mayor of Mid-Western Regional Council, Des Kennedy, had the Mayor of Warrumbungle Shire Council, Ambrose Doolan, and myself there. And that was really talking about not so much the competition, but talking to the farmers about the steps forward. Now, there were some farmers in the room, it was fair to say, who were just asking us to stop them. The interesting part is that councils, in terms of renewable energy projects of this size, are not the consent authority. So we don't get to say yes or no. We get to put our comments in. We get to ask for some money in terms of those funds, community benefit funds I've just mentioned a moment ago, but we don't get to say yes or no. So there are some people in the room who are still saying no, stop them all, they're terrible. One of the bits of advice that we gave from a council perspective is that we don't think you can stop them. We think things are happening. Liddell's about to shut down. Coal-fired power stations are obviously on the way out in this country. So we think they're happening. Whether you like it or not, that's irrelevant. They're going to happen. So the best thing to do from a community perspective, in my opinion, is to see what you can get for the community, see how you can maximise things for the community. So you can stand there and keep saying, stop them, stop them, stop them, or you can say, well, they're going to happen. Let's work with these proponents and see how we can get some community benefits. And that's really the attitude that Dubbo Regional Council is taking.
Just briefly, Mayor Dickerson, you're also meeting with ministers. How did those meetings go?
Yeah, it was really actually quite interesting because we've got a new government in the state government now. So one of the first things you want to do is start to set up some meetings with all these new ministers. There are very few ministers in this government that have actually been a minister before. They've been in opposition for 12 years, so they haven't actually been able to be in that position before. So I was lucky enough last week to set up two meetings with two ministers that I think will be very important for our future going forward with this new government. One of them was the Minister for Regional Transport and Roads. So obviously roads is what everyone seems to talk about at the moment. So that was Jenny Aitchison, and she was actually pretty excited because she's had some internal briefings so far in her role as minister, but this was her very first external meeting with anyone. So she proudly announced that when she walked in, well, you're the first person I've ever met with as an external stakeholder as a minister. So she was pretty excited about that. It didn't get me any extra money for roads, but it was still good to start that relationship and establish that and just work out how we can work together to try and keep fixing regional roads. She did talk about $390 million that will come over the next 2 years in addition to any other fund. So that'll be, for Dubbo, for example, that'll be about $7 million that we'll get in addition to other funds for our roads over the next 2 years. So that's good, but we have got about a $60 million backlog. So it's not going to fix it all, but it's going to certainly help. The other minister I met with was Ron Honig, who's the Minister for Local Government, and he's got great experience with local government. He spent over 30 years, about 32 years at Botany Bay City Council up to 2012. He was mayor for about 30 of those. So that's exactly what you want as a Minister for Local Government, someone that's got extensive experience with local government. And so that was a good discussion. We talked about a range of things with local government. One thing that we talked about was rate pegging, where councils cannot put up their rates by more than a certain amount. And he gave us the history from 1977 through to today in rate pegging. And I think at the end of that, it was basically rate pegging's here to stay for certainly while he's minister anyway. So it's good to start those relationships, and there'll be a lot of other ministers will be meeting in their roles over the next couple of months.
Appreciate your time this morning, Mayor Dickerson. Thanks so much for that.
Thanks, Lam. Good luck. Continue on.
Thank you. That is the Mayor of Dubbo, Mathew Dickerson, joining us here on 2BS 95.1 FM.
Mayoral Memo with Mathew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.